This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for a brand new podcast that I've been waiting for quite a long time, and it's called Let's Talk Life with Alicia. And Alicia is Dr. Alicia Midland. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, I am excited about this. A lot of people don't know that a number of years ago, boy, like 4 years ago, I think
Yeah.
we started a podcast together. And, you know, things happen. Kids started getting grown up, and you needed to spend more time with your family. And so we took a break from it. But a couple of weeks ago, you joined us on a podcast, and everybody fell in love with you. And we decided that this is time to start talking about how our lives are changing and, the assistance that we need from each other to get through a day. So tell everybody a little bit about you, Alicia.
Okay. Well, I feel like I'm on a dating game. Here, tell you, let's meet Alicia.
Yeah.
Well, I am on. If you go onto the new Cleveland radio website, you'll see that I hold a bachelor's degree from the University of Michigan. I have a master's degree in counseling, and I have a specialty degree and my doctorate from the Michigan School of Professional Psychology. And I'm a fully licensed counselor here in the state of Michigan. So that's the professional side of Alicia. And then the personal side of Alicia is I am a daughter, a mother, and a sister, and a friend, and a neighbor, and
A little bit of everything.
Pardon?
You're a little bit of everything.
I'm a little bit of everything, yes.
So you and I talked earlier today, and I've known this for a while, that you have a certain mission in life. So share that mission with everybody.
Okay, well, it started when I was a little girl, and I wanted to make a difference in the world. I've always wanted to make a difference in the world. I don't know why I thought I was so self-important that I could make a difference in the world, but since I was a kid, I was the friend to the stranger, or there was a homeless person, so we have food, so we need to feed them. We need to clothe them. I've always had this, I guess, innate social responsibility for other people. And I figure, we are in relations with one another, and you never know how you affect somebody. And I always wanted to make the world a better place. I have never been real thrilled with our world. And that's kind of my mission in life, is to make a difference, even if it's for one person for one brief moment, just to make a difference in the world. And that's kind of still my passion.
Well, and to make a difference in the world, it's not necessary. We don't have to necessarily think of ourselves as, going out and creating, this huge foundation, which is going to give millions of dollars away, or finding the cure for COVID. That would be wonderful. But, just that one word that you might say to somebody, or on Facebook, acknowledging that you're hearing somebody, that makes a difference.
Oh, absolutely. People are on my tush about this, and look, I'm going to make sure I keep my language very clean. Well, I'll be very proud of me. But walking into Plum Market years ago with my girlfriend, and she's like, let's get a cup of coffee. They have coffee at this market in West Bloomfield. And so we go in, and I'm smiling because I'm generally a happy person. And I made eye contact with the person, and I just said hi. Wasn't flirty in nature, it wasn't anything, it was just a hi. And this person smiled, and my girlfriend looks at me and she was like, I'm gonna do that from now on. And I was like, do what? Like, I'm so oblivious to certain things. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she was like, this person is now smiling all because you smiled, made eye contact, and said hi. And I was like, okay, I just thought it was the right thing to do. Like, I think when I'm like 80 years old, I'm going to be the Walmart greeter, like, hi, how are you? And then what are you wearing? I don't know. It would probably happen that way. But it's something that just is internal. And I think that, and I never really realized that just that simple thing can really change somebody's mood. Just like the opposite can happen, and notorious for doing this as well. You know, a little road rage here and there when they're not going fast enough, the speed limit, or what I think the speed limit should be, and being on their ass. Like, I don't know what they're not hurrying for, or I don't know, maybe they're having a stroke. Who knows? And so maybe me being on their ass made them nervous, and then they had a heart attack. So there's a chain reaction in life, and I do believe that the energy you throw out in the universe, you get back. But we just don't know.
Well, you know, I agree with you that, you know, adding a smile in an area really can change the whole environment. Um, I remember a number of years ago, I was going through depression. And my whole comment to my husband was, I don't want anybody to see me. I don't want to go anywhere. And he started taking me to the comedy club once a week. And I would fight him on it. It was like, I'm not going and whatever. And he'd say, that's fine. I'm going to drag you there and you're going. And the best part of it was that the comedy club would make me laugh or smile, even if I didn't want to.
Sure.
And I'd walk out of there so happy that there were people, you know, that would see me and would look at me like, you know, she must have just gotten something really good, you know. But that smile is contagious. And I've tried very much so through this pandemic, even though I'm wearing a mask, I try to smile through the mask, because when you do, your eyes open up, you know, your cheeks lift up, and people know that you're smiling at them. And I think it's important.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we read people. And we're the only species that when we show our teeth, it's not because we're about to bite you. Yeah. Although some people actually might be biting, but that's a whole other topic for a different time. But seriously, and that mask really, if you're looking, even people who are on the spectrum, they're looking for some social cues, and we've taken that norm away.
Right.
And so we have to look for other cues. And I think people, I mean, I'm smiling and then I'm like, oh, right, they can't see me. And then I'm like, hey, hi. And then I'm just like, now I just look like I'm a freak. Because I'm sitting here waving my hands being like, oh, no, I'm being friendly. And they're just like, okay, crazy lady walking through the store. Like, so it has changed in a lot of ways.
Well, it's funny that you should say that, because my husband and I, our only real going out is like driving over to Dairy Queen and going through the drive-through. Mm-hmm. And there's one person who works at the Dairy Queen who is the friendliest. I mean, I love her, okay? And when my husband hears her voice through the intercom, he gets all giddy, you know, hi, we're here again, you know, do you know what we want? And then when we pull up to the window, he's waving at her. She recognizes our car now. But I know that she makes our day when we hear her voice, and we make her day by acting all giddy. And you know what? It's something that we need, especially now when things are so heavy around us.
Yeah. I mean, it's a time of uncertainty for sure. You know, talk about uncertainty. We were talking about what we were going to name the show today.
Right. Yeah.
Which my kids, by the way, had the biggest laugh ever. They're like, really, Mom? And then I'm putting it on Facebook, right? Because I'm social media, like, obsessed. And I'm not obsessed, but I want to get the word out. And I'm a connector. I'm going to use a Jill Zarin, Real Housewives of New York thing of, I'm a connector. I connect people. And if I don't, my mother will. And I was like, okay, looking for that. And they're like, you still didn't get the name right. And I was like, well, it's a work in progress. And they're like, you're not going to change the name of the show every week, Mom. And I was like, well, you never know. We could. Like,
hey, anything is possible,
especially with their mother. Anything is really possible. I'll be like, well, maybe we'll talk about this today. And then, no, we're going to change the whole show.
Well, let us talk about something that happened today, because
Yes.
your kids returned to school, except they
Yes.
were in the house when they returned to school.
Yes.
What is it like being a single parent working, constantly? I mean, you're
Yes.
a therapist. Now you have two kids, okay, one in elementary school, one just starting middle school.
Yes.
Unbelievable. And you're homeschooling.
Yes.
How do you do it all?
With a lot of patience. No. I thought about this because we had talked about it. Today was a very big day. And I have millions of thoughts every single day, all night. It's what I do. And, it's always amazed me of like, oh, how do you envision life? And Max's bar mitzvah is next year. And I'm now consumed with that thought of like, what am I going to say up there when the rabbi's like, I got to get all my 15,000 drafts out. And I was like, I'm all of a sudden become very future oriented. And then I was like, I can't be future oriented because I have to live in the moment. And instead of really looking at the negative aspects of this, because I really don't know if there are. And I, for whatever reason, I take a historical perspective on things. And it used to be, and it's maybe a little shtetl mentality, which for our non-Jewish listeners, it is a small Jewish community. And we all used to live like that, Jewish, non-Jewish, all the Irish people lived together, all the Polish people lived together. We all raised each other's children. And it really was, I don't think at that point in time it was men or women. It was just, we did what we had to do just first to survive. And then I think about it too, and I kind of go, I'm going to be very honest, adolescence sucks. Middle school absolutely sucks. And there is a pressure and a pecking order. And I know life and times are very different. And I never in a million years would have thought I would be sounding like my parents right now, but I am. But there's a drastic change from when I was in middle school to looking at Max, who's my son, who's 11 years old. And I'm sitting here going like, I would never let him babysit an infant. By the time I was his age, I had already taken care of 3 infants. Now, granted, they were in the neighborhood and my parents were in walking distance. It's a big thing. I'm letting him walk from school to home without me, or for him to stay home for an hour. I think by the time I was like maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, times are different and things have changed.
Right.
Change isn't always good and it's not always bad. I think of this pandemic as being a reset and really looking at values. I had a big insight into, or at least for me, educationally wise, as my kids go to school for 8 hours a day. The instruction that they were getting, and granted, my school district, and I'm going to do this, West Bloomfield, you guys did an amazing job in a crisis situation, and my kids really didn't lose a lot of education. And for that, I'm incredibly grateful. But I think it made us all look at our educational system and go, this sucks. And my kids are only getting what they need, which is about 3 hours of true instruction and learning. And I think back in like the 1800s, they had the one schoolhouse. We were all there. Well, I wasn't, but our ancestors were there. And who knows, I could have come back a couple times, haven't gotten it right yet. But then they went out and they did real world life experiences. And look, we as people survived. I don't know if that's good or bad. I don't want to actually put a value judgment on it. Does it suck that I can't go live my adult life? I don't even know what that means, because what was my adult life before? I got up, got the kids to school, went to work, picked them up, did robotics coaching, took my kid to dance, but still I'm only one person. And I'm very blessed that I have both of my parents and my sister and a bunch of friends who are like, dude, Alicia, like, hey, we're here. And I'm grateful for that. There are not a lot of people who have that. Yes, I have an ex-husband, and yes, we do not see eye to eye on a lot of things, but he had to lean on me and my family, which I know is probably, and I think he would admit that, really hard. But our kids come first. To me, our kids come first. And so I'm blessed that I have my own practice and I can juggle my patients around, and I have to make do with what I have. And my parents have allowed that. Because before they offered to help, I was like, great, so I'll do telemedicine from this time to this time. Then I will do this. And then on Saturdays, I'll just start work at 9 a.m. and I'll work till 8 or 9 o'clock at night, because I still have people that I'm responsible for. And my dad was like, well, that's a really great thought. And you're nuts, but okay. And because it was my job, my responsibility to raise my children.
Sure.
Forgetting the fact that we're all going through this. And even people, I want to say this, it's not because I'm a single mom, but I know married couples who, they don't have the luxury. They have bosses, they have people that they have to answer to, and they might not have the flexibility that I have. But I'm still that person who's like, oh, your kid needs to be picked up. Okay, well, we'll just, now I don't have my Tahoe. I'm a Jeep girl now, so my seating is limited. But you know what? Yeah. Oh, you're going to be working late because flex schedule. I'll make dinner if you need to. Like, that's my contribution, because we literally are all in this together trying to figure it out. And we don't really have a blueprint for it. Do I feel horrible that my parents are so generous? No, I don't feel horrible about it. I feel horrible that I feel like we're intruding on their life, and I'm failing as a parent because I really can't do it all. And yes, my friends who have probably now clicked on the link are probably putting it on pause. I will admit it, I can't do it all. I say I'm fine and I'm going to figure it out. And usually I do, but I can't do it all on my own. Which this pandemic really has taught me that now, granted, I'm not going to ask for help. That's never going to change. And I will think 3 or 4 times before doing it, but I think that's happened to everybody. I think whether you're married, divorced, cohabitating, poly, you got 6 people living in your house. We all don't know how to figure this out. We don't know, there's speculation. Oh, we'll be in school for a month. Oh, we'll be in school, till November, and then flu season will hit and it'll all be shut down. We don't know. So my whole life of being a little bit of free spirit kind of helps with this, in the sense of, I'm just like, oh, well, we had online classes today. Yay! Like, tomorrow they're going to be in school, and Friday we have no school, so Monday they might not go back. Who knows? Like, because, and it's kind of freeing, to be honest. Scary. And again, I'm my own employer, so it's a little bit easier. And my patients also, which if they are listening, I'm also very grateful. I'm very lucky that my patients, where I've said to them, like, hey, look, life in the fall changes. This is the flexibility I'm going to have. This is the flexibility I'm not, because my kids come first. And I feel bad as a therapist saying that. But then I also can look at my friends and colleagues and stuff who are like, you know what? Like, and granted, I have to work in order to provide for my family. I only have one source of income. But I also feel bad for the people that are like, their children come first, but they also need their job in order to survive, and they don't have the flexibility.
So, so I have a question for you. Okay. So before the pandemic, there was no blueprint, and we were juggling and we were working very long hours. And um, it was in some ways tougher than it is today. Although I don't think a lot of people want to admit that because they think what we had was better than what we have now. But I sort of agree with you that the pandemic has given us that opportunity to slow down a little bit,
Mhm.
be able to work more efficiently. I mean, we see so many people working from home and they are finding a way to be more efficient because they don't have an hour or longer drive back and forth to work. They don't have to worry about the upkeep of the car, to make sure they get to work every day.
Right.
Um, they don't have, those lunch hours that are taking time away. Okay. Now they can take lunch with their kids if they're working from home. There's a lot of positives. And I'm sure there's a lot of negatives too, but there were negatives before.
Yes.
And I think what I've seen this do for you is allow you to admit, I'm not perfect. I can't do everything. And so occasionally, yeah, I'm going to accept your help.
Yeah. I mean, they're gonna have to throw it down my like down my throat. But yeah, I mean, I always have said I'm perfectly imperfect, and I do try to be the perfect mom. And I don't even know what that means. The pandemic made me realize that I don't stop to smell the roses. It's like those who can't teach, and I'm like, well, I guess us therapists, we're all nuts. But then I looked at my life, and I was like, it is nuts. I go from here because I don't want to upset my son. I go here because I don't want to upset my daughter, and I want them to have a life. And then I would ask my mom, like, well, how did you do this? And she's like, well, your dad would do this, or your grandmother would do that. And I'm sitting here like, oh, so really, I'm repeating the behaviors that were taught to me
Right.
without even really realizing it, except the frustration and the anger. Well, having to unplug from everything and not having it there, and spending a lot of time and having to spend a lot of quality time. And I hate to say having to spend a lot of quality time, but it was like we were together. We'd get up, they would go to their school meetings on the computer. Mommy would be in the room doing therapy. My daughter Bailey, like, I'm like, all right, honey, I'm going into therapy. And it's like, great. And then 5 minutes later, hey, mom. And I'm like, oh my God. Or like her big head was going in the whatever platform we were using at the time. And she's like, are you depressed? And I'm like, oh my God, you can't do that. Well, mom, like, do your job. And I'm sitting here like, I would love to do my job. Or poor connection. I mean, there were things like that. And then there was the like realization of like not being able to go anywhere. And for people who are new to meeting me, I'm an extrovert. I get energy from people. People fascinate me, hence why I love doing what I do. And all of a sudden there's nothing and nobody. And I was like, I kind of like this. Because I didn't realize how much I was reading other people. I didn't realize, and not analyzing. So I want everyone to settle down, all my friends, and like, I'm not like, oh, so they're doing this because of this. No, but it's an innate thing with me of like, oh, that person's not happy, or this is going on. And then, but not being able to see anybody. And talking on the phone was becoming exhausting. Quite frankly, like doing therapy on the phone became very intrusive in a lot of ways because Well, one, I'm sitting on my bed, and my bed is my sanctuary, and I'm inviting these people essentially in my bed, and I'm not leaving the room. Because, you know, we had a bunch of other stuff going on in the house, and I'm literally like in my bedroom, which thank God, boarding school for a couple of years, I was used to that, but I was used to people coming in and out. I could leave my room, I could leave the grounds, I could walk around, but people were freaking me out. And I was like, the world became a very scary place. And then I became very scary in my personal life because I became an introvert literally overnight. Didn't want to talk to people. And I don't know exactly why that was, but I was like, I was reading things with people about school and like how horrible this is, or, you know, what is this? And I'm sitting here going like, all of you are freaking me out. And I'm a trained individual and you are now like, I don't want to talk to anybody. You know, and my parents were out of the country, and I was like, you better come home because they're closing the borders. And then they're not. And then my mom calls 20 minutes later, we'll be home in 2 days because they're closing the borders. I'm like, yeah, no kidding. Going to the grocery store and people just, it was a very weird time. And then being on roads where there's no cars, which I got to say, very happy. I got to test out a little bit of my Jeep. But I got my Jeep in February. I got it on February 21st, and I had 1,000 miles on it. Well, now I have 3,000. And so what, 6 months later, I have 3,000 miles on my Jeep. That put things in perspective. Where I was filling up once a week in my Tahoe, I don't go, I mean, we're doing stuff and we're getting back to our life, though it's different.
Right.
And I think it's about being comfortable with being different. We talked about it. You said, when are things going to get back to normal? And I was like, I don't even know, one, if I wanted to go back to normal, and two is I don't even know what that means anymore. Do I have anxiety when it comes to the school stuff? Absolutely. Like I said, West Bloomfield in Michigan, they've done a wonderful job, but these bombardments of emails, and then this is unclear. We have a plan, we're just uncertain if we can execute it. Okay, great, thank you. And while I appreciate knowledge is power, this is not making any powerfulness. And there's no empowered of like, well, we just don't know. Hey, it's coming tomorrow. And then tomorrow comes and we're like, where's the email? And, you know, the glass of wine at the end of the night becomes 3 glasses of wine because that makes it easier. Because there's no rule book. There's no like, oh, well, in 6th grade, we go to middle school and then we have an orientation and then we do this and we do that. No. You know, school today was 10 minutes. They had the cute little introductory, like, you know, video. And I'm waiting. I'm like, and? I mean, I know it's the first day of school, and yes, I vaguely remember a couple of my first days of school where, like, you get to meet people, but no, we just saw teachers, and that was great. And then I got to take Bailey, who's my daughter, to elementary school so she could meet her teacher. And I'm standing outside, and I can't go in the building. And she's like, Mom, come on. And I said, honey, this is the end. I mean, it was like, I don't know, sending her to prison almost in a sense, because I was like, I can't cross this line. You're going to have to go do this. And then she's coming out, and I was like, how was it? And she's like, oh, that's fine. I'm like, all right, cool. And then, so in the whole half hour she's in the school, thinking about what we were going to talk about tonight, but then it also dawned on me of like, our roles and boundaries are even evolving and changing now.
Absolutely.
And like, yes, my parents are, I think on my Facebook status, I wrote like first day of like West Bloomfield Middle School, which is I think still called Abbott. I don't know because they're combining the schools. So again, the name's even unclear. We're cohort A. Yay, that means we're morning. Not a morning person still, by the way. 7:55 is too early for anyone to be talking to anybody, but we'll work on that. If we're going to do this whole online schooly thing, like I'm going to propose everyone starts at the same time and everyone gets off at the same time. And no talking before like 9:30. Like I will be okay with that, but not in charge. But anyway, so I've got that, and I'm sitting here going like, I'm still the parent. Like my kids are going to go to my parents, and they're going to do their afternoon stuff from school, that what's required so I can work. And I'm sitting here going like, but the role confusion. And you have that dynamic as a single parent anyway, or a divorcee or a widow, where you get help from other people, and then like, am I still struggle with this today of like, well, I'm always going to be my parents' kid. They've made that abundantly clear. It does not matter. I am 43, and I think I'm still 5 with them sometimes. You know, they've made it very clear I'm still their child. And there are parts of me that scream, yes, but I'm an adult. And pandemics brought up family issues that we've had to work through. And like anybody, like I'm no different. People are like, well, you're a therapist. Yeah, I'm also human. I'm really more human than I am a therapist. It's really like ridiculous. But I have emotions and I act impulsively because I have ADHD, which I'm doing really good. I haven't really, you know, I'm not on Ritalin, so this is even better. But there's this whole thing of like, my parents are going to be doing this. My parents' role is they're my children's grandparents. They're not the parents. My sister is the aunt. But what if they do something that I don't like? Or I hear about it like, you're not doing it right. And that scared me. But then I like to talk. And so, and I come from a let's talk this out family, or yell family, or we're just going to talk over each other family. But I really had to say, like, early, like months ago, like, I'm the mom. And even though it's the house I grew up in, those little munchkins came out of me. And you're the grandparents, or my sister's really good about boundaries and will ask. But that's also changed the family dynamics. I mean, I am kind of actually grateful we didn't move next door to my parents when that was a possibility. And then there's a part of me that's like, it kind of sucks because it would have been really easy of like, dude, they can just go over when they wake up and I can sleep and I'll just join them later. Like, so, you know, yeah, I guess I still am a kid because I'm never going to be a morning person. It's just never going to happen. But really, when it comes down to it, like we are the collective, we are the Borg, but we were talking about stuff and it was like, no, this is what's going to happen. How do I keep my parents safe? Because granted, we've got great genes, and they look young and they're healthy, but the reality is, I won't give specific ages, but they're in their 70s. And I like told the kids, like, you're going to go to school, you have to hand sanitize before you get into the car. When you get out of the car, you're going to have to wash your hands, wash your face, take a shower. After you get out of the shower and change your clothes, then you can touch your grandparents. Because we are learning as the disease is evolving, and that's changing. Well, even the decision to make them online versus going to school part-time, that was a whole other thing. And but I'm not, my parents got sick, because it was a decision that I had to make with my ex-husband, I would feel horrible. And I think, honest to God, I think he would too. But that was a risk that they were willing to take because they love their grandchildren and they know it fell on me and I needed the help. But it does change some of the dynamics a little bit. And, you know, as it evolves, like with any relationship, how do you navigate it? I'm always telling people, like, you know what, you need to be upfront about your expectations. And I was very, very upfront with my parents about my expectations, and my sister, of like, this is not playtime. This is not the kids get to do whatever they want. And it's not like Sugar Rush from like candy. Like, it's not, they have to do schoolwork, and there has to be a plan. And when they get it done, and then you can play. And when I come home, I'm over to your house, I'm still mom. I'm your daughter, but I'm their mom first. So that's an adjustment. But making the decision. I mean, my ex-husband and we don't have the best relationship. And when this all came down and I made a phone call to him or an email of what are we going to do? Because we could do all online or this hybrid, which is what we're doing. And he was like, no, like they have to go to school. They have to go to school because I have to go to work. He didn't want them to go to school. I really wish at the time, like, we had a better relationship, because I personally didn't want them to go to school either. Bailey's my daughter's an extrovert and she needs to be away. My son, I think, would have been okay online. I couldn't do that to them. So I was like, okay, so that kind of decision was made for, but it was horrible. Got to make this choice. And before I didn't know I didn't have a choice, talking to my ex-husband. I mean, I remember it coming out and being like, what am I going to do? How is this going to play out? What is this going to look like? And then you're making me make a decision now, but life is changing so rapidly from this disease. What if today's decision doesn't mesh well with tomorrow's decision? And I even did that for my practice. I didn't know that. I mean, I knew I was an essential employee, like establishment. I was considered essential. I thought, because people treat therapy as not always essential. I mean, the first thing, when you start like losing your job and you lose your benefits, therapy is the last thing, because it's not on. Sure. It's not on the top hierarchy of needs for a lot of people. So I never really looked at that, and I could have stayed open through this whole entire time. I didn't. I closed my office March 13th, and I didn't go back until July, because I had to make sure I had the cleaning products. And then I was watching trends of things, and I was like, I don't want these people in my office. I don't want them in my office. They don't want to come to the office. We'll give it one more week. And I was living my life like that. Which then I was like, what are we going to do about camp? What are we going to do about school? And it was always the what. And yeah, I will be honest, there were nights I cried. There were days I cried. There were days that I didn't realize had turned into nights that had turned into days. I lost sleep over this. I continuously lose sleep over this. I was thinking like, oh, my lids are really I need to really see an eye surgeon because they're getting bad. And I was like, well, let's put it this way. You're only getting about 2 or 3 hours of sleep a day. You're going to get a little sagginess. Yeah. Because you're tired. And then it's allergy season and you have bad sinuses. But, the nip and talk, let's focus on that, because that makes sense. But it was like, but I could control that. I can't control my sleeping or not sleeping. That's the way my anxiety manifests itself. And I think, I do my best thinking at 4 o'clock in the morning, which sometimes I actually do. But I'm watching people go through this. I'm watching the meltdowns on Facebook. I'm watching people who we just don't know. And I think I'm pretty sure I've said twice now on the shows, on 2 different shows, we want to make something concrete, something ambiguous to make it concrete. And I was like, but that's not my philosophy in life. With certain things, I think there are certain things versus you don't know. But yeah, today was the first day of school. Did it feel like it? I have no idea. I really, truly, I had all the mixed emotions of, I was really just looking at them in my house going like, they're going to be really tall. Like, I mean, it was just like, did you guys get your schoolwork done? Yes. And we're all sitting in the same room. We're all doing the same thing. And I'm sitting here going like, they're really big. When did that happen? When did they, like, they just got bigger. And then I'm like, oh, well, they're like, plants, you water them and feed them, they grow. And I was like, duh, okay, they do eat a lot, but they just seemed like older to me. And then I got weirded out by that. And I was just like, why am I freaking myself out? I should be embracing this, because from the time I didn't get a lot of maternity time when they came out. And Max had a traumatic birth, and Bailey, I had a ruptured disc at the time. Their births were not pleasant. And I was always really resentful and angry that I had a month with them, which, recovering from 2 C-sections after a month is not fun. And now I have that time back, but I'm actually enjoying it more because they talk and they express, and they're not crying, and I'm not looking at it helplessly like, oh my God, they're crying, and they've fed them, they've peed, pooped, and what more do you want from me? You're not tired. Like, I remember being like, looking at Max, because he's the firstborn, and going like, what do you want? Like, I've given you my all. We're up all night. I have a dissertation to finish. Like, just speak. And I'm going like, wow, he's 3 months old, and you're yelling at your 3 months old because you're tired. And he is probably just, having a good old time. And he can't tell you. And then, talk about feeling like a bad mom. Bailey comes along, and my 3-year-old's like, Mom, she's still hungry. And I'm looking at him like, well, don't you know, like, I'm like, no, she's hurting. He's like, no, she's hungry. That's not a pain cry. And I was like, okay, you suck. Like, this is not fair. I don't even, your sister's cries over me? Like, I made her. Like, that's not fair. And I was getting very angry and upset about that. Well, now it's like I'm watching my son like, Mom, you know what? We talk about we're a community in our house. We get through life together. That's my mantra. I'm in the middle of dealing with a patient, and he's like, I'm hungry. And I was like, there are hot dogs. And he's like, I never made hot dogs before. And I was like, well, let's figure it out. Like, so I'm on the phone, and he made lunch. He knows how to boil hot dogs now. Life lesson, he didn't burn down the house. He paid attention, he was focused. So this is also a good bonus. A life skill, I know he will be able to feed himself if, God forbid, something happened to me. He can either call pizza, call my mother and dad for delivery, or he can make hot dogs. But I'm sitting here going like, but had the pandemic not happened, would any of that happen? No, and I would have sent him off to college. He would have called me like, Mom, I joined a fraternity and we need pizza. And I'd be, okay, honey, well, here's my credit card and I'll pay I'll order it for you. And because I'm not a millennial, but I'm a Generation Xer, but I have younger children, and we all subscribe to these things. And I was like, there is nothing wrong with learning how to cook and how to, plunge a toilet. My son at 11 knows how to plunge a toilet. And I'm so proud.
Well, you should, because most kids today, and we talked about this earlier today.
Yes.
That my son still lives at home, and he keeps telling me that I'm going to cry the day he finally moves out.
You will.
Well, I probably will, but I'll also be clapping. It's about time. But
okay.
In the last couple of years, he's become a great cook.
Mm-hmm.
He does his own grocery shopping. If I didn't attempt to do his laundry, because it sits in the laundry room, okay? So
right.
If I see it, I think, oh, I should do it. But a lot of times they'll say to me, why did you do it? I was going to do it. But as mothers, we have this need, I think, or perception that we have this need to do all these things for our kids. But your son is 11 years old. And when I think
Yes.
about what I did when I was 11, like you said, you came home on your own. Okay.
Right.
Your parents worked. My parents worked. Um, and there were certain things, chores I had to do around the house before my mom came home. Okay. They weren't huge chores, but,
Right.
sure that your room was clean and there's no dishes in the sink when mom gets home from work. Little things like that. So to see, Max being able to make his own hot dog, help
Yes.
his sister, and do things for you, um, it's part of the life cycle. And those are the things that you're going to be talking about as weeks go on. And I'm hoping that your listeners are going to want to participate because it's it's an unusual time that we're living in. Um, and I think your mom and dad would say the same thing, that they grew up in a time when things were sort of simple and we thought things were going to stay that way. And things have gotten simpler, easier to do, but more complicated.
Yes, if anyone who has an iPhone knows it's simpler but much more complicated. I well, it's a technology thing, and honestly, I don't know if it was necessarily simpler. You guys are World War II babies. You guys went through Vietnam. You went through all the Korean War.
Yep.
There are a lot of life historical events that your generation went through that shaped the United States. My generation, we went through the wall coming down. We never thought the Cold War was going to end, and it did. Um, yeah, 1989, or 1988. Or no, it was 1989 because I was in a seventh grade, the year of my bat mitzvah, and I picked West Germany because nothing happens in West Germany. And 2 days later, the wall came down. Yes, and so that was fantastic, and we all have a good laugh about that. But major historical events for my generation, we had the Gulf War, we had 9/11, which was in my 20s, and watching things that we never thought were going to happen, and then kind of nothing for a while. But we don't also talk about like the droughts. We don't talk about Cambodia. We don't Live Aid. Remember, we were all in the 80s social activists in a lot of ways, and that part has changed. I think partly too, like I talk about the fact I didn't have a cell phone when I was in high school. I didn't have social media when I was in high school. Thank God. Yay. Because that would have been really bad. Although I probably would have figured out how to like jam it or something and whatnot. But my kids, when I tell them things, they're just like, huh? They're like, how did you survive? And I'm like, I remember when MTV actually played music videos. Like, and why I enjoy watching YouTube. Like, I don't, and they're like, Mom, I'm like, because you know what? I watch my old 1980s and 90s, like, erasure videos, and it makes me happy because I can't turn on the TV and go to MTV, or would it be VH1 now? Because I would be, I mean, that would be the oldies station, which I've learned 100, remember 104.3, where it played like, where you were still here when they played music from the 60s, 70s.
Yes.
Yeah. No, they played it from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and now 90s. Yes, my music that I went to high school with is now on the oldies station. Yay. And on 94.7, which is still classic rock, but so I'm a middle-aged woman now listening to 104.3, and we're reliving high school, which is, I mean, fine. But there's a huge, my point was, in 1995, I want to say, there became this huge technological shift. And that literally changed not the United States, but the whole entire world. And pop culture completely changed. We've just not emotionally been able to catch up with that. And it's allowed us to be more brash, although believe it or not, it's actually tamed me a little bit in some sense, because I was like, can't really say that because I will offend people. And then I was like, well, when did I start caring about offending people? And then I'm like, yeah, but I'm an adult now and they're like people, and then I end up doing it anyway. So oops. Sorry, not sorry, but I think it allowed people to have more platforms. But I also believe it allowed people to become more dogmatic, and we stopped learning how to talk to people. We learned how to talk at people.
Yes.
Which really bothers me, because it's not a dialogue, it's a monologue, which I think is funny because I'm having this whole entire show and it's been the Alicia, monologue for 41 minutes. I think I've allowed you to speak twice.
But it's your first show, so that's okay.
Okay, so thank you. But it's mind-boggling to me, because people are like, how did we get here? Well, and then we talk about mental health. And this is not a plug really for about mental health, but I will always bring it up because it's part of my life. Mental health was stigmatized. Mental health is still stigmatized. And psychological terms are being thrown around like there's no tomorrow. We love the words narcissist. We love any personality disorder anyone can have, and bipolar. That's my other favorite one. Now, yes, there are a lot of people who are bipolar on the planet. It's statistically significant. And yes, I go on this train too of, Mother Nature's being bipolar today. And instead of saying like, wow, the weather's being really extreme, but when you live in Michigan, yeah, I think Mother Nature is off her medication. It needs it.
Right.
When we go through 4 seasons all in one day, there's a problem, which is what we call abnormal behavior. But it's so like commonplace. Oh, that person's schizophrenic. And I'm really bad at it as well. When they start talking about like, oh, well, this person has this personality disorder. Well, no, we all have personality disorders. We all have traits of them, because we all hopefully have personality. Now there's a whole cluster where there's devoid of personality, but we're not going to get into that whole psychology lecture. But for the most part, we're all nuts. It's just a matter of how do we embrace it? Does it affect our lives? And does it affect other people? We're extremely selfish as a society. I don't know how long we've been this way, but it's got to be going on decades. Then we look at other people and they're like, other people helping people, and we're celebrating this. We're not celebrating differences anymore or similarities. It's I'm right, you're wrong. It's your opinion, but it's my fact. Well, no. And this is my big pet peeve with society right now. And what has to do with life, which also has to do, honestly, with the school situation. I said it before when I was on Melinda's, when I was a guest on her show. How's the pandemic, really affecting us? You know what? I have to do what's right for my family. And what's right for my family might not be right for your family. And quite frankly, that's okay. You are entitled to have your opinion. You're entitled to do what is best for your family. I'm going to do what's best for my family. And I am not, there's no judgment on my end, because it lets me know what I'm comfortable with around you versus what I'm not comfortable around. Exactly. But I understand the world doesn't, the world doesn't work like that any longer. And my poor children are being taught at home that it is okay to have opinions. It is okay that you disagree with their mother, and you can voice it. Doesn't mean it's right and doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just your opinion. And it's okay that you have it. Now I'm a benevolent dictator and it's still going to be my way at the end of the day, but oh well, sorry. I'm not a republic or a democracy. I am the dictator. But at least I listen. I mean, I'm listening. I'll take it into consideration, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But that's also my job as an adult. When I'm, not a kid adult or a child or a sister or whatever, or a therapist or, in control of the world. Now, that's what I will say. I always say I'm not in control, because I really, really am not in control, or I'm not in charge.
Right. And that's a good comment, that we are in control of what we do, but we're not in charge of your opinion, of somebody else's opinions. And I think we have to learn better communication. And hopefully through this podcast, you're going to teach us some of those things.
I hope so.
Well,
or I'll learn how to do it.
Well, and as we get more people involved in this, because it is about a conversation of life. You know, you and your ex-husband, you're communicating the best that you can.
Yes.
And, I feel for you, because if I had been through this with my oldest son and my ex-husband, I'm not sure we could have come to an agreement. In fact, knowing who I was back then, I would have given in, and then I would have been angry.
Right.
But I think one of the things that I'm learning through this pandemic is that it's about trying to find yourself and being authentic to who you are. And I think we'll all come out of it at the end much stronger and much better. So tell everybody how they can find you so they can be part of this.
Well, there's this thing called the Yellow Pages. Why? No, I'm just kidding. They probably don't even publish the Yellow Pages anymore. It's probably whitepages.com. No, I'm kidding. I'm not. I'm old school, but there's some things that they've canceled subscriptions to. Well, you can find me on New Cleveland Radio's website. You can find me on the Midland Wellness Center on Facebook. And right now, that's it.
Okay.
That's about as 21st century I get. I am developing a website. That's a TBA, and when it gets done, it gets done. But I honestly, to the listeners out there, what I'm all about, I'm very open. And so if there's really topics that are like, hey, I want to hear this, or even like, hey, I want to talk about this, you can get a hold of myself or Auntie Kiki, but that's not, you guys get to call her Karen. I get to call her Auntie Kiki. And we can start a dialogue. And I'm really open to anything. When I really say I'm a free spirit, I have no agenda. I guess my word is, I want to have a sense of community, have a safe place, have an open dialogue where, voice concerns, voice opinions, it's not a therapy session. And then I want to make that also very clear. It really is life talk with Alicia. Notice in there's no Dr. Minlin. There's no Dr. Alicia or Doc or whatever you want to call me, although some people have other words I'm sure that they would like to describe me. But honestly, it's really about being authentic, being real. Yeah, I'm scared. I'm anxious. I'm also happy, mad, sad. There's a whole entire world out there, and there's things in the world I don't like, and there are some things that I do like. I'm not a Republican, and I'm not a Democratic. I'm an independent, and I don't like the way our government is, but I haven't liked it for a long, long time, and I would love to be president one day. And my parents look at me, and I'm like, dude, because I can really much say anything, and it should matter. But I think that there are barriers that have been broken, and it's not the female barrier; it's just the big mouth barrier. that I would be like, yeah, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. And I even know who my running mate would be. It's actually a card-carrying Republican. She is my big sister from boarding school, and you know what? But it works. But I really do. No topic, honestly. I don't know with the regulations of things. That's Karen's job. My job is just to do it. It's like in the therapy session, in the sense of there is no topics that are off limits to me. Nothing is going to make me uncomfortable. It might make me, you guys might have some uncomfortableness, but my God, we live in uncomfortable times. So why not? And we have an opportunity. So I think that answered your question.
And we'll be doing this every 2 weeks. It's
Yes.
a bi-weekly show, not a bi-monthly, but bi-weekly. Get in there. So contact us. Again, you can always contact us at newclevelandradio@gmail.com. I will get the information on to Alicia, and we'll be back in 2 weeks.
I am looking forward to it. So I always, on my tagline on my email, which is really actually my calling card tagline in life, is I really wish all of you who've listened peace, love, health, happiness, and wealth.
Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
Bye.